Okay, we're back. That's right. Welcome back to Truth versus News Incorporated on January 27th. As the House, the Senate is proceeding now. It's Jay Sekulow talking about the impeachment process, and also coincidentally, the stock market is down about 360 points today. And so, all kinds of things are happening that we need to talk about. And we hopefully you saw the first hour. And if not, you get that. But right now, we've got other hot topics. Go ahead, Jim.
You were saying that the other attorney was making a brilliant case of eviscerating the Democrats.
Oh, yeah, Ken Starr did this super last hour, according to what I could read over there. And Jay Sekulow is on right now talking about the Zelensky and things. So it's really pretty heavy. And the stock market's down 345.
Very good. Very good, Don. Meanwhile, in addition, the Virginia Democrats are pushing legislation to make criticism of the government officials a criminal offense. Unbelievable. In the wake of the Virginia gun rights rally on Monday, Democrats are not slowing down in their push for tyranny. They're moving a bill through the legislature that would effectively criminalize dissent against Governor Blackface Northam and other state government officials. House Bill 1627 was introduced by Delegate Jeffrey Bourne last week. The legislation provides that certain crimes relating to threats and harassment, that's the key word here, may be prosecuted in the city of Richmond if the victim is the governor, governor-elect, lieutenant governor-elect, attorney general-elect, a member or employee of the General Assembly, a justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia, or a judge of the Court of Appeals. Language in the bill explicitly criminalizes free speech in what would constitute a blatant attack on the First Amendment. So they're not only going after the second, they're also going after the first. Any person with the intent to coerce, intimidate, or harass, again I say that's the key word, any person shall use a computer or computer network to communicate obscene, vulgar, profane, lewd, lascivious, or indecent language, or make any suggestion or proposal of an obscene nature, or threaten any illegal or immoral act, is guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor, making it clear the above provision applies directly to all the authorities of the state I've already enumerated. What, however, is considered harassment? Is Governor infanticide KKK hood trying to avoid being held accountable? Are we no longer allowed to demand justice for the alleged rape victims of LG Fairfax? This is some straight up communist censorship, she added. Virginia Democrats were not detracted by the gun rights rally on Monday in the slightest. They moved red flag laws through the legislature a day later, subsequently killed pro-gun bills introduced by Republicans. The governor and the leadership of the Democrats have declared war on law-abiding citizens and gun owners, and their votes today just confirmed that's where we're going, said Philip Van Cleve, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. Virginia patriots may have to continue organizing locally, with sheriff deputizing local patriots and constitutional militias being trained as a bulwark against the treasonous usurpers leading the state legislature. And get this, further indication of how whacked out they are in Virginia. Virginia Senate passes bill allowing transgender individuals to change sex on their birth certificate. The Virginia State Senate has passed a bill that would allow transgenders to alter their birth certificate to match the sex they truly are. Senate Bill 657 allows transgender individuals to obtain a new birth certificate showing a change in sex and, if necessary, a change in name too, if accompanied by court order. There is no need for the individual to hand over evidence or documentation of any medical procedure such as genital surgery. But there is a requirement the person requesting the new certificate of birth submit an affidavit provided by a healthcare provider from whom the person has received treatment, stating the person has undergone clinically appropriate treatment for the purpose of gender transformation. According to the Office of State Senator Jennifer Boysko, who has tried to introduce the bill for the last 3 years, the treatment required could range from counseling, hormone therapy, sex reassignment surgery, or a patient-specific approach provided by a medical professional. I just think it's important to try to make life easier for people without being discriminated against or bullied. Allowing an individual who's transgender to change their birth certificate without having to go through the full surgery allows them to live the life they are due to have. I believe that we have a more open and accepting General Assembly than we've had in the past, where people are more comfortable working with the LGBTQ community and have expressed more of an interest in addressing some of these long overdue changes. You know how often people ask for your birth certificate to determine your sex, obviously a pressing problem. The decision was applauded by Lee Vennick, the executive director of Equality Virginia, an LGBTQ advocacy group. Vennick said they were really pleased this bill is moving through, as it's really important for the transgender community. Right now, many transgender people do not have identity documents. This is really problematic when people are applying for jobs or trying to open a bank account. If successful, this bill would make Virginia the 23rd state to introduce such pro-transgender legislation. To me, this seems rather strange. A birth certificate, after all, is a record of you when you were born, not how you are now. There are already laws on the books that allow you to change your identification on your passport and driver's licenses. Is this not enough? Do we have to go back and rewrite history? Surely this opens problems with doctors. Knowing the biological sex of their patients is crucial to treating them properly. If the records are based on their birth certificates, which are no longer historically accurate, it could cause genuine harm to transgendered individuals. I find this bizarre in the extreme. Scott, your thoughts?
That birth certificate should be accompanied by a full frontal picture of the naked body to verify that they indeed are this or that. I mean, actually, you should look down and see what you are and be proud of it, because that's what God gave you. Use it and properly. Go ahead.
Well, in one sense, it doesn't surprise me that we have a population of delusional, schizophrenic, emotionally crippled, and sexually confused and sexually self-destructive people. We've engineered this for the past 40 years with the breakdown of marriage, the breakdown of the family, the introduction of pornography, of contraception, the belittling of women, and the forced the forced exodus of women from the home and the community centers, and women served as the glue that kept the brick edifice of human civilization together, and their feminine, motherly, maternal intuitions. And I saw that in my beloved mother and my beloved grandmother and my aunts and so many in my Scottish culture that has been eviscerated in America. I find myself always reflecting how lucky I was to come from a Scottish European flavored stock, because we had so much rich tradition and heritage and self-policing, and it's amazing when I look at what America has done to itself, and it's a very offensive, it's very bizarre, but it's very sick and mentally deranged. But in a sense, it's like watching the demoniac, in the Christian story of the demoniac living in the tombs and whipping himself and howling, and Christ came across the sea and delivered him out of all the demons, and he came to his right mind. These delusional people are out of their minds, and they're getting, of course, worse, but there's always hope that they will come to themselves. But we do not make law and policy and political decisions based upon this small, schizophrenic, demoniac, lunatic fringe. We make law and policy around the mass majority of all people in the United States and the world. And that's why this whole nonsense of transgenderism and homosexuality and gay marriage and all this stuff needs to be put aside as the plague and insanity that it is. And people need to focus on getting married and having kids and having grandkids and encouraging their grandkids and their kids. Spend your money on your kids and your grandkids. Don't buy a cruise to the Bahamas. Give that money to your son or daughter to get married, or have a condo or something, or have an extra kid. Or that's where we've lost in American society and much of the world. And Putin, ironically, Russia is trying to push the creation of marriages and families by investing money into young people. If they stay together to get married, they get a down payment on a home. Russia is rewarding young people and trying to replenish its ranks. And we haven't done that in the West. So there is a population time bomb. It's amplified by a lot of this insanity and carnality. But I think these are things that we have to draw our line in the sand and really turn away from a lot of this stuff and turn away from the insanity. Jim?
Oh, I think you got it right, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
There are more developments in the political arena with regard to campaign 2020. Bernie Sanders is surging to the top of the Democratic presidential pack, passing Biden. There are a lot of powerful forces, including in the Democratic Party itself, who aren't happy about this. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has improved his standing in the national Democratic race for president, joining former Vice President Joe Biden in a two-person top tier above the rest of the field, according to a new CNN poll. Marks the first time Biden has not held a solo lead in CNN's national polling. Overall, 27% of registered voters are Democrats or Democrat-leaning independents back Sanders, 24% Biden. The margin is within the poll's margin of sampling error, meaning no clear leader. However, both are significantly ahead of the rest of the field, including Elizabeth Warren at 14%, South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg at 11%, former New York Mayor Bloomberg at 5%, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar and businessman Andrew Yang 4%, Tom Steyer is 2%, and no other no other candidate reaches 1%. Sanders has gained 7 points since the last CNN poll on the race in December. Since that survey, the Vermont Senator has also made gains in early state polling, including CNN's survey with the Des Moines Registrar, where the first caucus of the cycle will be held in less than 2 weeks. Sanders has made gains nearly across the board, clearly pulling away from Warren among liberals. 33% support Sanders, only 19% Warren, a group where the two had been running closely through most of the fall. Sanders has also pulled even with Biden among voters of color. 30% for Sanders, 27% for Biden. Meanwhile, the New York Times, Senator Harris has mulled a Biden endorsement, I think because he's faltering. She is deciding she may be able to throw her weight that way because Sanders is rising. The New York Times is making an absurd double endorsement of Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren. Really quite stunning unless you understand this is all to counter Bernie. Meanwhile, Hillary slams Bernie. Nobody likes him. His supporters are misogynist. In a new documentary about her career, two-time presidential failure, Hillary Clinton unloads on Bernie Sanders, claiming nobody likes him, attacking his supporters as misogynist. In the series entitled Hillary, set to premiere on Hulu in March, Mrs. Clinton unleashes a torrent of what the Hollywood Reporter describes as not so fuzzy feelings about the Vermont senator. He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done, she ranted. He was a career politician. It's all just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. For the interview with Clinton, asked if all these descriptions of Sanders still stand. Yes, it does, she replied. But it's very odd because if anyone's a career politician, it's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Is she running for president again? It sure seems like it. Did Hillary Clinton become a candidate for the Democratic nomination Tuesday? Not officially, but I'm pretty damn certain she's in it now just the same, hoping for a confluence of circumstances that can catapult her to the office she so spectacularly failed to obtain. Notwithstanding last week's media-amplified kerfuffle over what Bernie Sanders did or did not say to Elizabeth Warren about women becoming president. The lines of this primary have been pretty starkly drawn to this point in the exercise. The eve of Iowa crowd of front-runners, Sanders, Warren, Biden, Klobuchar, Buttigieg, have fallen into two distinct polarities. Sanders and Warren at the progressive end, Biden, Klobuchar, and Buttigieg trapped for the establishment candidate crowd. On Tuesday, Hollywood Reporter published its latest cover story. Can we take a momentary pause?
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
On Tuesday morning, Hollywood Reporter published its latest cover story about Hillary, a 4-hour Sundance documentary series on her political career, set to debut in March. The hood ornament for the article is a Hillary quote about Bernie Sanders. It's a primary season equivalent of throwing a live hand grenade into a vat of kerosene. He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. No one wants to work with him. He got nothing done. he was a career politician. It's all just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. I could spend a week pulling this gob of deliberately vomited bile apart, coming from a former staffer from Nelson Rockefeller's Republican presidential campaign, a former First Lady of Arkansas, a former First Lady of the United States, a former senator from New York, a former Secretary of State, and a twice failed presidential candidate. Hillary's bit about Sanders being a career politician rises to the level of pure performative hypocrisy. If they're waiting for Mike Bloomberg, Michelle to hell, well, they are standing by. I don't think their prospects are great. Notice, interestingly, while Bloomberg is a fairly large guy, Michelle towers over him. Her name, of course, born was Michael Robinson, and where we know from her, then physician who walked into her in a trailer in a campaign in New Jersey and found her taking a leak standing up, that Michelle Obama is not actually a transgender, but rather a man with breast implants. Well, they're waiting in the wing should the other candidates, including Hillary Clinton, falter. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Scott, your thoughts?
Well, I think, Donald Trump has said in his tweets, look what they're doing to Bernie. They're undermining him. They're stealing the election again from him. They did it before. They did it under Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They did it under Hillary Clinton and the Democrat establishment. They're trying to steal it away one more time. You see Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, despite her youthful idiocy and lack of experience and wisdom, her emotional passion drives her to support Bernie Sanders, because he's just pure emotional frosting. There's no substance. There's just, there's hyper sugar excitement of, I want to cut all the student loans, and I want to get all this money to pay for everything, and I want the environment to be clean, and I want to do all the things that, the heavenly host want to do. But unfortunately, for our condition as human beings and our condition of the world and the economy, you really can't govern humanity like a totalitarian dictator, and that's what the Democrats are. But again, this is all driving towards a very, very real, palpable suspicion and possibility. I've said before that they could be engineering a Manchurian candidate assassination, where they kill one of their own, possibly Bernie Sanders, to usher in a replacement with a heroic rescuing of the flag, the guidon bearer. If this man falls, I'll pick up the flag. If Bernie Sanders is shot by a Trump supporter, Hillary Clinton will pick up the flag, or Michael Robinson, aka Michelle Obama, or if Biden is taken out, then Hillary or Bernie or someone will take it up. This whole psyop of a Manchurian candidate, I think, is going to happen, because it's the only hope that the Democrats have of traumatizing the American people into submission. That's what this impeachment hearing was all about. And the delusion, the only advantage of this, despite having some good people on the Republican side, Gates and Jordan and some of these other varsity player wrestlers who know how to get in there and do some chokeholds and destroy their enemies, despite how good they are, the only thing that's really carried the day is the incompetency and the stupidity and the selfishness and the mental unhingement of people like Nancy Pelosi and Schiff and Nadler and all of these idiots that keep thinking, they're rolling like lumps of cat feces in powdered sugar and trying to sell it to the American public like it's a donut. And everybody with a brain and sensory perception is saying, we know exactly what this is. It's a lump of cat feces. It's not a donut. Yet they repeat it over and over and over again, thinking if I say the lie 30,000 times, they're eventually going to be deluded and hypnotized into accepting it. And I don't think the American public are gullible like that. They've been inoculated or saturated with lies since 9/11, that they're now seeing an increasingly clear vision of what the Democrat totalitarian fascism and ulterior motives are all about. Overthrowing an election and putting in their agenda of social control and domination and really a tyranny. And they keep trying to sell this, but the American people are, and the politicians are growing and rejecting it. That's why there's a great deal of hostility accruing. And I might add that hostility is translating into citizens looking at other institutions of power like Northam, initiating the marshals or the police, or coming to citizens' homes and asking them questions about their guns, or coming to the rally. I watch a lot of the videos of this, and it's palpable to me, the education, the outrage people are now showing to the police, and they're getting in the faces of police. They're actually having their kids in the car, and they're going and they're testing and provoking the police by saying, I'm videotaping the FBI, or I'm videotaping police because of the brutality and the corruption, and the police get in the face of people, and yet the people don't back down. They don't stand down. They don't give their documentation. They don't give their driver's license. They don't give their personal information. They confront the police and tell them, you are out of bounds. You are stepping out of your constitutional role. And I'm telling you, I've never seen in the history of this country so many civilians rising up and getting in the face of the police because they're refusing to be bullied. They're refusing to be intimidated. They're refusing to be ordered around anymore. And I think that's a very real and expanding and flowering metamorphosis of the the American citizenry, is the challenging, not in an aggressive, psychotic, vengeful way, but in a reassertion of our constitutional rights and powers and liberty that has been taken away for 20 years because of terrorism, and the police often throw that out. I think you're seeing a major sea change in the American political consciousness, and it's being led by conservatives. Jim?
Well, you're 100%, Scott, exactly right across the board. Don, did you want to add to that?
Oh, no, I don't think I can add anything more than what Scott has there. But it is time to stand up for our rights now. I mean, this is it, folks. We're really at a crossroads as this new decade has started. Things have gotten so much worse that if you're not aware of what's happening, you're going to be subject to all kinds of havoc. But you got to stand up and know what's going on. And I will say this show, Truth versus News, with Jim and Scott, is probably your best vehicle to share with other people, to wake them up to what's happening, so we can all stand up and under that Constitution, and of course our God-given rights that is protected, that shall not be infringed. That's what it says. Okay, go ahead.
Meanwhile, Hillary, Democrats need to expand media control. They don't have enough control of the media already to influence, to brainwash Americans. Hillary, in an interview with a Hollywood Reporter, said she believes Democrats need to get greater control of the media as a means to influence the thinking of Americans. In the discussion, the Hollywood Reporters asked the former First Lady how the left can combat Fox News, because the lone right of center mainstream media outlet needs to be stopped, apparently. Hillary was all too eager to offer up her thoughts, lamenting how Fox has allegedly produced propaganda, and the left needs to step up their game as a means of controlling the narrative. We do have some well-off people who support Democratic candidates. There's no doubt about that. But they've never bought a TV station, she said. They've never gobbled up radio stations. They've never created newspapers in local communities to put out propaganda suggesting people like Robert Murdoch at Fox and the dreaded Koch brothers have played a long game about how we really influence the thinking of Americans. She's suggesting fighting fire with her own perceived fire, completely ignoring the fact that, while Fox leans right, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and most major print newspapers are wholly owned subsidiaries of the Democratic Party. This is completely obscene. Reasons why, however, they're getting hysterical and panic-stricken. Commerce Department, December retail sales jumped 5.8% versus last year. The economy is hot. U.S. housing starts jumped 16.9% in December with 1.608 million units. Pete Navarro, the two greatest days in U.S. trade policy history. New poll shows, and this is not a typo, 83% of American farmers support Donald Trump.
Wow.
There's no doubt about it that even though they are impeaching Trump, he will still be reelected. While I believe he committed a massive blunder by taking out the Iranian General Soleimani, and now is threatening to assassinate a new leader of the Quds Force, which is all, in my opinion, violations of international law, the UN Charter, and the rules of war, where the United States is connected to the UN Charter, for example, by treaties which, under the Constitution, have the same standing under the law as the Constitution, and therefore, in my opinion, would be impeachable, bona fide impeachable offenses, as are the sanctions on Iran, like the sanctions on Iraq, which are forms of collective punishment that are also forbidden by the Geneva Conventions and the UN Charter. Nevertheless, a plurality of Americans are backing the Soleimani killing, and it doesn't appear as though Donald Trump will pay any price for it. I do believe there are real reasons one could offer to advance this president, but they're not those being pursued by the Democratic Party, which have no substance in fact or evidence. Scott.
Well, this is a power grab. This is an attempt to overthrow an election. This is an attempt to traumatize and poison and confuse the American public using half-truths, half testimonies, distortions. It's masterful psychological propaganda. It's masterful hypnotics. Alan Schiff with his mellifluous voice and his, bug-eyed presentation. I mean, it's enough to make alpha males want to puke and run at him like a dummy on a football field when you're in practice sessions. But this is a very real manipulation of the American public, and you can look no further than many in our own households that are enchanted with this anger, enchanted, and they find a sense of existential living or purpose by this heroic, standing up to a Titanic Goliath menace of Trump, somehow abusing the Constitution. All of it is fabrication. All of it is cartoonish. All of it is based entirely on lies and manipulations. And that's, again, where the Republicans have a duty for self-preservation. If they want to live through this, they cannot let the skulking dog escape the room to bite them another day. It's mad. It's vicious. It has to be put down, and put down permanently. So this impeachment needs to be put down with the use of full testimony exposure, which is what they've been doing, passionate moral outrage, and directed specifically at the practitioners of the deception, which they've been doing, and looking in the direction of Nadler and Schiff and Schumer, and bringing in the witnesses and the testimony that will fulfill the exoneration and also confirm the suspicions. Remember, the suspicions of Hunter Biden and the suspicions of Burisma and the shell game and all of this stuff. It's all still sort of suspicion in a world of nebulous anti-gravity reality, because the mainstream media haven't allowed it to become a permanent rock structure in people's consciousness and reflection and action items. That's what deception operations do. They cut out the roots and they destabilize people so they don't have any cornerstone of decision making. So the witnesses need to be brought in to confirm that, and let them be the voices of moral outrage. Then people who don't like the Republicans will find a redeeming quality in the passionate outrage of the witnesses that are brought in, and they will also share a vile hatred of the corrupt parasites like Hunter Biden. Some little old lady in Kentucky, when she's watching Hunter Biden put on the stand and said, "You were paid this money for Burisma because your dad was in vice presidency. You never went to oil school. You never had a job in oil. You never did anything. When did you get there? When did you go there? Who did you talk to? How did you go talk to?" That stuttering, drug-addicted Navy flunky is going to fall apart and start crying and weeping on the stand. That's what you want to do, is crush the life out of these Democrat witnesses, have them frothing and rolling on the ground, their heads spinning 360 degrees, so the American public will go, whoa, this is the new Democrat Party, this demonically possessed bunch of lunatics and children in tantrums who are screaming and spitting because they're not getting their way. Put those dogs down. And they do that by electing new political figures and overtaking the House and the Senate and keep the presidency. And I'm not a fan of Trump's foreign policy in his militarism against Iran and Russia. I hope that changes. But the first step is to get him reelected. And the first step is to eliminate these Democrats. And the old Flower of Scotland, the song was, and sent them homeward to think again. They need to send all these Democrats homeward to think about why they run for political office, and that is to support the Constitution of the United States and make life better for the American citizens, not to practice their utopian hell vision and practice on the rest of humanity. So I think they need to be sent home, and this is the instrument to do it. Jim?
You know, Scott, it's fascinating, but these people don't seem to believe in the Constitution. They don't seem to believe in democracy. They don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. I mean, it's just stunning to me that you have a Democratic Party that is really in violation of the Constitution from its very core, that the arguments it makes, the candidates it presents just aren't even American in their approach to these issues for the most part. Ironically, Bernie Sanders, who happens to be a Jew, seems to me would make a better candidate for president because he wants to put America first than, say, a non-Jew who wants to put Israel first. I'm very, very troubled by the state of the nation at this point in time.
Yeah, and I will say today, Trump met with Netanyahu in the White House again, and everybody is very thankful and going to have a peace program process coming out tomorrow, and all kinds of things that are happening. So we're married at the hip, right at the hip with Israel, and I don't think that has really been good for world peace in the past, and how can it be for the future? Looks like things are not right in that Middle East. Time to come home, folks. Okay, go ahead.
Very good, very good, very good, Don. Yeah, I mean, it's troubling, the situation we're in today, politically and otherwise, just baffles me. Meanwhile,
Me too.
remember, we've reported how the New York Times admits it sends stories to the US government for approval before publication. We know Google likely shifted undecided voters in the 2018 election, perhaps millions, researcher says. We know Dr. Robert Epstein testified to Congress that his research over the past 6 years showed that Google, via various deliberate manipulation, moved between 2.6 million and 10.4 million votes to Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential race. I have no doubt it was because of similar manipulation that the Democrats retook the House in 2018. Now listen to what he has to say.
Yes, this is good.
Epstein, I found your testimony incredibly powerful, incredibly concerning. And if anyone draws news out of this hearing, I would encourage you to review very carefully Dr. Epstein's testimony. And I'd like to take a moment to make clear several things. First of all, as I understand your background, you're not a Republican and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
And indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not just dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale. And what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy. I believe in the free and fair election more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Now, you described the Go Vote reminder, and you said it wasn't a public service announcement, but rather manipulation. Can you explain how? I'm not sure everyone followed the details of that.
Well, sure. If on election day in 2016, if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, had chosen to send out a Go Vote reminder, say just to Democrats, and no one would have known if he had done this, that would have given that day an additional at least 450,000 votes to Democrats. And we know this without doubt because of Facebook's own published data, because they did an experiment that they didn't tell anyone about during the 2010 election. They published it in 2012. It had 60 million Facebook users involved. They sent out a Go Vote reminder, and they got something like 360,000 more people to get off their sofas and go vote, who otherwise would have stayed home. The point is, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg sent out that reminder in 2016. I think he was overconfident. I think Google was overconfident, that all these companies were. I don't think he sent that out. Without monitoring systems in place, we'll never know what these companies are doing. But the point is, in 2018, I'm sure they were more aggressive. We have lots of data to support that. And in 2020, you can bet that all of these companies are going to go all out. And the methods that they're using are invisible. They're subliminal. They're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences. And I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
You know, our Democratic colleagues on this committee often talk about what they view as the pernicious effect of big money and big corporate dollars. What you are testifying to is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires and giant corporations are able to spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars collectively, massively influencing the results of elections. And there's no accountability. You said, we don't know. We have no way of knowing if Google or Facebook or Twitter sends its Democrats or Republicans, or how they bias it, because it's a black box with no transparency or accountability whatsoever. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, with respect, I must correct you.
Please.
If Mark Zuckerberg chooses to send out a Go Vote reminder just to Democrats on election day, that doesn't cost him a dime.
Fair enough. Do you happen to know who the Hillary Clinton campaign's #1 financial supporter was in the year 2016?
I think I do, but please remind me.
The #1 financial supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign in the 2016 election was the parent company of Google, Alphabet, who was our first witness. They were her #1 financial donor, and your testimony is, through their deceptive search methods, they moved 2.6 million votes in her direction. I would think anybody, whether or not you favor one candidate or another, should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections to silently and deceptively shift vote outcomes.
Again, with respect, I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
Wow. Could you say that again, please?
The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes, depending on how aggressive they were in using the techniques that I've been studying, such as the search engine manipulation effect, the search suggestion effect, the answer bot effect, and a number of others. They control these, and no one can counteract them. These are not competitive. These are tools that they have at their disposal exclusively.
If any headline comes out of this hearing, that should be it. Senator Hirono.
Yep. That's it. Wow.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it, how what's going on here, the extent to which we are being manipulated by the social media giants now. This man courageously gave his testimony, but the deep state doesn't like being crossed. He's now suggesting his wife's fatal car crash may not have been accidental. I don't think so either. Google whistleblower Dr. Robert Epstein has suggested his wife's fatal car crash may not have been accidental. Last month, Misty Dawn Vaughn's Ford Ranger, it's described here as spun out of control on a slippery road, but I don't think that was necessarily the fact of the matter, in California and veered into the path of a tractor trailer. Of that part, I have no doubt. She died from her injuries days later. Police concluded that drugs or alcohol were not factors. In a tweet posted last night, he appeared to suggest the crash was not accidental, that Fawn's vehicle could have been tampered with. I think it's simpler than that. Because they're computerized controlled now, they can take remote control of cars just as they can of aircraft. Last year, after I briefed a group of state attorneys general about Google's power to rig elections, one of them said, "I think you're going to die in an accident in a few months," wrote Epstein. That's troubling all by itself. But now, a few months later, my beautiful wife, Misty, has died a violent death. Makes you wonder. I don't have any doubt about it myself personally. I think he's done too much damage to expose one of their secrets. And now they're punishing him for it. Scott.
Well, it's a perfect opportunity to make him a martyr, make him a truth teller in an age of electronic deception operations spun by YouTube and.
Uh-oh. Well, come on, Scott. Come on. Come here, Scott. Scott, oh boy. Okay.
Should I pause it? I'll pause it, Don.
Oh, I'll pause. Okay.
Well, that was interesting because the internet just went down and my computer was shut down the moment I mentioned the New Zealand shooting, where the New Zealand shooting was fraudulent, was impossible for a shotgun to be shot inside a cab of a car and not shatter the windshield and not shatter the eardrums of the police in the car. The impossibility of the New Zealand shooting and the absence of bodies and blood and the traditional biological reactions that bodies have when they're shot. We exposed that, Jim, and YouTube shut us down. We exposed that. We exposed Sandy Hook, of course, too. You did it excellently. And the Sandy Hook woman going around to, Lenny Posner going around to this woman to create targeting of websites and taking them down. This is all part of the fascist YouTube, Facebook, Google monopoly. If there's anything that should trigger Americans into a revolution, it's these high-tech companies that have been parasitically feeding off the life of the American public. In a sense, they need to be all broken up by anti-monopoly legislation. They all need to be arrested for violating civil rights of Americans intentionally. This example of manipulating people's civil rights and votes and lying to them in order to get votes for Hillary Clinton, a prime example. Epstein, or the doctor that your behavioral science guy, Robert Epstein, he needs to be held up as a martyr. He needs to be held up as a champion that revealed the true nature of this wickedness. His wife being killed, no doubt. We need to have him and groom him and have him talk more about this, because this could be something that does not go away. This could be the shot heard around the world and the lethal blow that can continue and to be amplified. And some things are worth dying for. So, I mean, he's lost his wife. What better thing to do than attack and attack the killers of your wife? Even if you go down, there is a heroism in that, and I hope and pray that comes. Jim?
Yeah. Also, I guess let's recall that his wife was 29 years old, and he's in his 60s. That's named Epstein and everything else. I don't know.
That's true, Don, but he's obviously a truth teller. He's a good guy, even though he was a staunch supporter of Hillary Clinton. He was revealing the truth. because he
Compromise.
believes in democracy more than he does a party, more than he does one self-serving human being who's done nothing but wreak havoc on the United States to promote her own interests. Hillary
I
Clinton.
praise him very much for his testimony. Just awesome and unexpected in this day and age. A very brave man, paid the price.
And here we have 5G being the ultimate directed energy weapon system, says particle physicist. Particle physicist Dr. Catherine Horton argues, based on her research and personal experience, that 5G network is intended as a directed energy weapon system that aligns with the goals of the global elite to enslave humanity. Dr. Horton sees the current rollout of the 5G network in a way different from mainstream perception, and for good reason. To begin with, she's a particle physicist with a PhD from Oxford University. She worked as a high-energy physicist on the particle collider at the German Electrosynchrotron DESY in Hamburg, Germany, and on the infamous Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. At Oxford, she worked as a research fellow at St. John's College, a position that allowed her to expand her research from particle physics into medical physics and the physics of complex human systems. As part of the latter, she conducted systems analysis research of the English legal system, economies, the financial system, currencies, as well as white-collar crime and organized crime. In other words, she has the credentials to be public enemy number one to a global elite trying to deceptively use technology as a key cog in their plan to enslave humanity under a totalitarian world government. During her childhood in Romania, Dr. Horton alleged that she and her family experienced intimidation and terrorism because they were highly educated and refused to take part in the snitching and informant criminality being promoted by mob networks there. Dr. Horton says stalking and other such activities ramped up in November 2011 as she was attending a high court case in London as part of her systems analysis research into the English legal system. She says she was openly being stalked on her way home from court and started noticing a thug waiting for her outside her home every morning to follow her to the train station. Attempts to face these forces head on through the courts and through activism have led to a rise in these attacks on her, which include not only human intimidation, but torture through directed energy weapons. You can read more details regarding her experiences on her Stop 007 website, which among other things offers support and legal guidance for targeted individuals. So your 5G system is like a gang stalker with a directed energy weapon in his rucksack who shoots you in the face as you're walking behind him, on the pavement, for example. But it will not be a gang stalker. They can do away with those if they just have 5G antennae every 50 to 100 meters. So the 5G system will do everything the current global weapon system can do, and it can also, I strongly believe, instantly kill. In other words, if you want to cut to the chase, my view of the 5G system, and I'll show you why I think that's the case, the 5G system should be best imagined as the government or the shadowy group that's infested the government, taking over every city on the planet and every village and even the smallest town and even, the forest where you think there is nothing, putting up hidden machine guns that follow you and your family, pointing right at you, and these are, set sharp, so they can shoot you dead at the speed of light if somebody so wishes, okay? So that's the best description of the 5G system I have. Here's the Google.com projection of the U.S. population going from a present 327 million in 2020 to 100 million in 2025. It appears to be some combination of techniques we're talking about here that are going to be the mechanisms, including vaccines in response to a real or feigned virus that will be used to cull the herd. Meanwhile, a Washington State biochemistry professor has observed 5G is the stupidest idea in the history of the world. He's got it right. Markdale Paul, PhD, Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry and Basic Medical Science at Washington State, outlines in a new report the many health risks associated with 5G technology and wireless radiation in general. Stunning stuff. Scott, your thoughts, my friend?
Well, we've seen directed energy weapons and military crowd control weapon systems. So this is just a laser-focused application of these radioactive heat thermal weapon systems, pinpointing individuals. And I think you're right. The matrix, the web that's set up towers can be located in all these areas. It's like triangulating, the position of someone within 3 points. Really, that's all they need are 3 towers within a town, 3 towers within a city, 3 towers within a county, and you can target anybody and anything. So I think we're going to be approaching a time where these towers are going to be destroyed by civilians and citizens in the United States. I think they're going to be dynamited. I think they're going to be rammed, burned down. I think people are going to be waking up to the physical poisoning and destruction. I know in our town we've had a very provocative demonstrations in a town hall to the half-witted old fools who are up there thinking that somehow they're ushering in a utopia and a paradise, even though they know nothing about the technology or the physical impact. But I think we're going to be seeing a lot of this material, and Don did a great show having it up there. This is going to have an impact on people to a level where they are not going to be debating. They're not going to be entertaining how much radioactive material can I ingest, and it's okay. How much feces do I put in my pudding that's not going to kill me? I'm not going to have any of it. I think the American public are going to stay that by destroying this technology in their towns, in their communities. And quite frankly, I think they should if they want to preserve their own life, because these towers seem to be representing a radioactive energy that is corrosive, destructive to the soft tissue biology. And there's no tolerance. It's a violation of the Constitution's right to life in liberty and pursuit of happiness. Life itself is being attacked by these towers, and that's the ground to demand immediate injunctions, because this technology is causing death in people. Jim?
Yeah. You got it all right. Our final story is a doozy. I have been contacted by a woman from Newtown, a 3rd-generation family member there. She had 2 girls, her daughters, in 2nd grade at the time of the Sandy Hook event. Obviously not at Sandy Hook Elementary, which it had been abandoned by 2008, but in another school in Newtown. She's been on a long sojourn of discovery of truth. She has come to the realization that Sandy Hook was a complete fraud. She has a background as a journalist. She has a lot of credibility in the community because she had been maintaining a blog about Newtown events. Now she's coming out as a truther. She's being massively pilloried. Even her husband won't speak to her. She went to complain about a smart meter being attached to her home to the local company, just asking for a replacement. They were so unhappy they had the police come and arrest her for criminal trespass 1, when all she was doing was asking for customer service. She did an interview with me on the 24th, which is now up at 153news.net. She's stunning. She's sensational. She has intelligence, courage, integrity. She has articulation. She's a dynamo. And now she's under massive attack. This, in my opinion, is a real breakthrough. They're going to go all out to discredit her. And the effort has begun today in spades. Scott.
We can't have her around. No, not people like her. Not in America.
Well, that's the great, again, the psychological operation of Sandy Hook was designed to use children and the killing of children to strip people of their desire to have a Second Amendment right. And the Second Amendment right, of course, is to oppose government tyranny. That was what it was about. It wasn't about defending your cattle from wolves. It wasn't even about defending yourself from Indians or marauders. It was about defending your rights and your life and liberty from tyranny, from slavery that would have been imposed by a tyrannical government, be it the British or the new American system. So that right was installed to preserve the experiment of democracy of 1789. And we've lost that, and that's what this was trying to do. The Sandy Hook exposure of all the elements, from the parking of the vehicles in the same direction to the photographs of the kids walking across the tarmac, all handing hands in 2 photographs. The father who claimed to be a father and then was also seen as a police officer holding his weapon upside down, disappearing and avoiding the camera, and then appearing on Bill Moyer's show. the death certificate issue, which is poignantly grit you, Jim, and this Lenny Posner lawsuit. All of this needs to be thrown out. All of this needs to be sent to the Department of Justice to demand a special investigation, to demand that this is a massive fraud, a massive psychological operation, and Barack Obama is behind it. And the physical evidence and the documentation that you've provided is overwhelming. And in a court of law, a jury would come down on your side, but the court is blocking it. And you demand for the immediate investigation of the judge, his impeachment, and handing this to the federal authorities, because this is a clear and present danger to the United States. Jim?
I think you said it all, Scott. It's stunning. Don, your final thoughts here before we have to conclude today?
Well, we actually still have 2.5 minutes to go, so let's say we have a little time to think about it. But the Sandy Hook is something else, and your whole book on Sandy Hook, 300 and some odd pages. Each page is
Let me add that she has composed a blog, which I published, about the mysterious Adam Lanza. Many of us believe there is no Adam Lanza.
That's right.
She has gone through the yearbooks. Being a resident of Newtown, she's had access to them and has done a stunning job suggesting how Adam Lanza was a fabrication made out of the images of other parties, including his brother Ryan. You can find that there. She also drafted for me a blog about her experience in going to the energy company where they denied they had smart meters. I told her to photograph the meter and document it, which she has done. It is a smart meter. They are denying it's actually been activated, but they were playing games with her, calling the police criminal trespasses at gross overcharging. Get this, we talked about her discussion with the district attorney to bring down the charges and settle it out of case. She's a person who's never been arrested for anything, just simply performing her obligation to her own family and herself to get rid of a smart meter. Stephen Sedinsky is the district attorney she'd have to deal with, where he wrote the final report on Sandy Hook. They're now attacking her in the newspaper and widely broadcasting her criminal trespass to discredit her. This is the last thing they wanted, an actual credible resident of Newtown to come out with the truth about Sandy Hook. Scott, it's a stunning situation. We have to support her every way possible.
Yeah, we'll have her on our show, Jim. We'll have her on Revolution Radio and tell her tale on Wednesday or Friday of this week if she can. I think this is imminent and important, and Don, playing these impeachment hearings are also a good way to remind people of what we're facing.
Sensational, Scott. I'll put you in contact with her. Excellent.
Yeah, I think this is quite the day here on January 20th. I would like it to be June and all the rain we've having, but it's just something else here. So this is a Truth versus News and we really have to put out the truth that you can't get anywhere else. Jim and Scott are the best messengers of and pursuers and researchers for the harsh truth, no matter how rough it is. And we're getting it to you, folks. So share this widely. And we thank you so much for watching. I say adios. Last words, guys.
No, stand up for the truth. Stand up for the truth. Support Rebecca Carnes. You can find even a place where you can donate on the blogs at jamesfetzer.org. I'll be publishing her second about her smart meter experience today.
Yeah.
And I would say, Don, people should call their members of Congress and the Senate and demand that witnesses be brought in, and also call Schiff and Schumer and all these people, and Feinstein and others, and say, remind them that this whole thing is a fraud against the American people, and you're outraged and you're sickened, and you know exactly it's only a matter of time before you're both kicked out and possibly imprisoned for violation of the Constitution. People put pressure by calling and scare the hell out of these people. You'll see them tuck tail and run. Jim?
Yeah, I guess it's time for us to run. So thank you so much for watching, folks.